The most recent, most spectacular development in the Oswald case involves the CIA. It involves, too, the spectacular district attorney of New Orleans, a man they call the Jolly Green Giant. It involves arrests, hypnotism, truth serum, bribery charges, and for the first time, an outline of a conspiracy. It certainly accounts for the recent national upsurge of suspicion concerning the conclusions of the Warren Report. And it raises a new question. Was the assassination plotted in New Orleans? Mike Wallace reports.
New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison quietly began his own investigation of the assassination last fall. In a sense, he picked up where the Warren Commission had left off. Warren investigators questioned a number of people in New Orleans after the assassination, and they failed to implicate any of them. But the more Garrison went back over old ground, apparently, the more fascinated he became with the possibility that a plot to kill President Kennedy actually began in New Orleans. By the time the story of his investigation broke 4 months ago, he seemed supremely confident that he could make a case, that he had solved the assassination.
I certainly wouldn't say with confidence that we would make arrests and have convictions afterwards if I did not know that we had solved the assassination of President Kennedy beyond any shadow of a doubt. I can't imagine that people would think that I would guess and say something like that rashly. There's no question about it. We know what cities were involved. We know how it was done in the essential respects. We know the key individuals involved. And we're in the process of developing evidence now. I thought I made that clear days ago.
He shocked New Orleans 4 months ago by arresting the socially prominent Clay Shaw, former director of the New Orleans International Trade Mart. Garrison's charge was that Shaw had conspired with 2 other men to plot the assassination of President Kennedy. Garrison said Shaw had known David Ferry, an eccentric former airline pilot who was found dead a week before Garrison had planned to arrest him. Incidentally, the coroner said Ferry died of natural causes, but Garrison called it suicide. He said Shaw also knew Lee Harvey Oswald, that Ferry, Oswald, and Shaw met one night in the summer of 1963 and plotted the president's death. Clay Shaw said it was all fantastic. Garrison has expanded the scope of his charges to include not only a Shaw-Oswald-Ruby link, but the CIA as well. Further, Garrison says he knows that 5 anti-Castro Cuban guerrillas, not Lee Harvey Oswald, killed President Kennedy. He says the CIA is concealing both the names and the whereabouts of the Cubans. In an interview with Bob Jones of WWL-TV New Orleans, he discussed proof that the guerrillas were there at Dealey Plaza in Dallas.
We have even located photographs in which we have found the men behind the grassy knoll and the stone wall before they dropped completely out of sight. There were 5 of them, 3 behind the stone wall and 2 behind the grassy knoll, and they're not quite out of sight. And they've been located in other photographs by process of bringing them out, although they're not distinct enough you can make an identification from their faces.
But this is one of the photographs Garrison is talking about, shown first with an overlay. Those roughly drawn figures at the bottom of the page could be the men Garrison believes he sees through the little holes at the top. Now we remove the overlay to see the photograph itself, a hazy blow-up of an area from a larger picture. If there are men up there behind the wall, they definitely cannot be seen with the naked eye. I asked Garrison if he would sort it all out, if he could summarize his investigation and put it in perspective.
About the New Orleans part, I don't like to sound coy, but it is impossible to talk about the New Orleans details without touching somehow on the case, and I'm not going to take any chances about reflecting on Mr. Shaw or this case. We worked too hard for me to ruin it by a casual comment.
4 months ago, you said that you had solved the assassination. At that time, you didn't even know Perry Russo. And yet Perry Russo, it turns out, is your main witness in the preliminary hearing.
Right.
Is he still your main witness?
No,
are there others?
No, there are others, and I would not describe Perry Russo as the main witness. But let me say this, that the major part of our case up to that time was circumstantial. Again, I don't want to touch in any way on the case against the defendant, but we knew months before that the key people involved, but there was no basis for moving at that time.
You say that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill President Kennedy. Who then did kill him?
Well, first of all, if I knew the names of the individuals behind the grassy knoll, where we know they were, and the stone wall, I certainly would not tell you and couldn't hear. There is no question about the fact they were there. There's no question in our minds what the dominant race of these individuals was, and there's no question about the motive. In the course of time, we will have the names of every one of them. The reason for Officer Tippett's murder is simply this. It was necessary for them to get rid of the decoy in the case, Lee Oswald. Now, in order to get rid of him, so that he would not later describe the people involved in this, they had what I think is a rather clever plan. It's well known that police officers react violently to the murder of a police officer. All they did was arrange for an officer to be sent out to 10th Street. And when Officer Tippett arrived there, he was murdered with no other reason than that. Now, after he was murdered, Oswald was pointed to sitting in the back of the Texas Theater where he'd been told to wait, obviously. Now, the idea was, quite apparently, that Oswald would be killed in the Texas Theater when he arrived because he killed a blue coat. That's the way the officers in New Orleans used the phrase, he killed a blue coat. But the Dallas police, at least the arresting Dallas police, fooled them because they had apparently too much humanity in them, and they did not kill him.
All right, there is Lee Harvey Oswald at the back of the Texas Theater. Then what?
Well, then notification has gotten to the police of this suspicious man in the back of the theater, and you know the rest. But the Dallas police apparently, at least the arresting police officers, had more humanity in them than the planners had in mind, and this is the first point which the plan did not work completely. So Oswald was not killed there, he was arrested. This left a problem, because if Lee Oswald stayed alive long enough, obviously he would name names and talk about this thing that he'd been drawn into. It was necessary to kill him.
That's where Jack Ruby comes into the picture.
That's right. It was necessary for one of the people involved to kill him.
Mr. Garrison, obviously we're not going to try the case of Clay Shaw here on television, but some people, some journalists and others, have charged that you have tried to bribe, to hypnotize, to drug witnesses in order to prove your case against Shaw.
That's right. I understand that the latest news by a New York Times writer is that we offered an ounce of heroin and 3 months vacation to one. As a matter of fact, this is part of our incentive program for convicts. We also have 6 weeks in the Bahamas, and we give them some LSD to get there. This attitude of skepticism on the part of the press is an astonishing thing to me and a new thing to me. They have a problem with my office. And one of the problems is that we have no political appointments. Most of our men are selected by recommendations of deans of law schools. They work 9 to 5, and we have a highly professional office, I think one of the best in the country. So they're reduced to making up these fictions. We have not intimidated a witness since the day I came in office.
One question is asked again and again. Why doesn't Jim Garrison give his information, if it is valid information? Why doesn't he give it to the federal government? Now that everything is out in the open, the CIA could hardly stand in your way again, could they? Why don't you take this information that you have and cooperate with the federal government?
Well, that would be one approach, Mike, or I could take my files and take them up on the Mississippi River Bridge and throw them in the river. It'd be about the same result.
You mean they just don't want any other solution from that in the Warren report?
Well, isn't that kind of obvious? Where do you think that pressure's coming from that prevents witnesses and defendants from being brought back to our state?
Where is that pressure coming from?
It's coming from Washington, obviously.
For what reason?
Because there are individuals in Washington who do not want the truth about the Kennedy murder to come out.
Where are those individuals? Are they in the White House? Are they in the CIA? Are they in the FBI? Where are they?
I think the probability is that you'll find them in the Justice Department and the Central Intelligence Agency.
You're asking a good many questions, but you haven't got the answers to those questions. You have a theory as to why, indeed, the president might have been assassinated by a group of dissidents.
No, your statement is incorrect. We have more than a theory. We have conversations about the assassination of the President of the United States, and it does not include only the conversation brought out at the preliminary hearing. We have money passed with regard to the assassination of the President of the United States. We have individuals involved in the planning and we can make the case completely. I can't make any more comments about the case except to say anybody that thinks it's just a theory is going to be awfully surprised when it comes to trial.
Garrison says Clay Shaw used the alias Clay Bertrand, or Clem Bertrand. At Shaw's preliminary hearing, Perry Russo testified that Shaw used the name Clem Bertrand the night of the alleged meeting to plot the assassination. It was obviously a crucial point in Garrison's presentation at that hearing. But a week ago, NBC said it has discovered that Clay Bertrand is not Clay Shaw. NBC said the man who uses that alias is a New Orleans homosexual whose real name, not disclosed in the broadcast, has been turned over to the Justice Department.
Garrison's problems multiplied yesterday. His chief aide, William Gurvich, who conferred recently with Senator Robert Kennedy, abruptly resigned. Gurvich was questioned by Bill Reed, news director of WWL-TV in New Orleans, and CBS News reporter Edward Rabel.
Mr. Garrison said the CIA has attempted to block his investigation for some time.
His purpose for bringing the CIA in, Bill, is this. As he put it, they can't afford to answer. He can say what he damn well pleases about that agency, and they'll never reply.